Well, hello, dear friends. Listen, I don't know what happened with the YouTube algorithm, but my last video went kind of nuts, at least compared to my previous videos. 9,000 views in a week and 175 new subscribers? Wow. All I can say is thank you so much for your interest in the North and my little life here in the Yukon. I make videos on a variety of topics, but that was the first one that has had that kind of uptake. The people have spoken on the type of content they want. Good thing I had already planned a second installment on this subject. In my last video, I talked about some of the advantages of living in a remote and isolated village in northern Canada. Oh, and we got the most epic Christmas tree. If you missed last week's video, I highly recommend you check it out to give you the context for today. But to give a quick recap, I spoke about the sense of freedom and independence, as well as the proximity and access to nature, the lack of people, and vast wilderness. Thanks again so much for being here, and on with today's video. Well, as soon as I finish getting this wood in, which, by the way, if you're curious, would heat our old, rather large and inefficient house for about 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the outside temperatures. On with the show. Hi, Stanley. One thing that I find is very true about living in a small village is that life in general just has an ease to it. Yes, there are hard things, like there are anywhere, but there's not the same sense of like grind to life, you know? There's less stress. Life is simple. You're not spending, hours commuting in bumper to bumper traffic. I can walk anywhere I need to be in my village within 5 minutes. So yeah, there's no commute, like even for people who live out of town and have to commute into town, they don't have to deal with traffic. You're not, navigating hordes on the sidewalk. So it's just kind of simple. Like it's easy to get to places. You don't have to worry about parking. And it's just, there's an ease to life that, is very appealing. And, with that, in work environments, there's no dress code. I can wear sweatpants to work if I want. So there's not the same sort of, artificial sort of rat race or corporate ladder that you're trying to ascend. And in many ways, life is more authentic. I think there are definitely some economic advantages. A big thing people talk about living in the North is, the high cost of living. And yes, there are things that are more expensive. Groceries are more expensive. Gas is more expensive. Housing is more expensive. But in general, you are making a much higher wage as well. So in a sense, that sort of balances things out. But I do think there are other economic advantages. For example, there are less places to spend your money. In our town, there is a grocery store, a liquor store, a post office. There aren't a lot of places to spend your money. So in a way, that allows you to save more money because you can't just go shopping for the sake of going shopping. You have to save your shopping for when you drive to Whitehorse or when you go down south. So in a way, you have to plan your spending more, which I think allows you to save more money and spend less. I also think that when it comes to activities and, sports, fitness, kids activities, that things are a lot cheaper. So here we have access to all kinds of free programming. We have an excellent rec department. There are sports nights. There's a fitness center. There are free fitness classes. There are free drop-in art nights, craft nights. There are all sorts of activities and workshops that you can participate in, sports that you can participate in that are either completely free or at a very low cost. So, I think if you compare this to living in a city where there's a lot more demand and people are charging money, you can participate in a great number of activities and spend virtually nothing. So I think that is, there's cheaper costs to participating in extracurriculars. That is a real great way to save money as well. The other thing that is amazing about living in a small remote community is that sense of community. So obviously, when you live in a small village, you pretty much know everyone. And if someone is new to town, you know that they're new because you've never seen them before. So you know most people. And with that, most people are willing to help out. You're this small group of people living in a very isolated environment that has a harsh climate and harsh conditions. And there really is, a sense of community that unites you. And people are always willing to help you out if you're in any kind of trouble. If something tragic happens in the community really comes together to support each other. It's not only in times of trouble. Our community gathers for all kinds of events. There are community parties, community dinners. We're coming up to the Christmas season now, and in the month of December, there is some sort of community gathering every single day, whether it's a dinner or a dance or an open house or a lunch. There are always opportunities to gather and connect with each other face to face. And I think that is something that is really special. Being able to be a part of events, if you choose to, really helps people feel not alone in a very sort of harsh environment. And I think that the sense of community in a small place like this is exceptionally strong. The fact that you know all your neighbors and you know everyone that lives around you. I mean, you could live in a large condo or apartment building in some big city and not know any of your neighbors. So because we all sort of depend on each other to survive and thrive, we know our neighbors, we love our neighbors, and we all work together. And I think that is an amazing part of living in a small remote village.
Thumpity thump thump, thumpity thump thump, look at Frosty go. Thumpity thump thump, thumpity thump thump, over the hills of snow. Come here.
In addition to being part of a community, there's also this sense that you are part of something bigger, and you are also able to contribute to the life of the community in ways that you maybe wouldn't if you lived in a bigger place. And I think that opportunity to participate and play an active role in your community, volunteering, being a part of something with a group of people helps bring, meaning to your life and purpose to your life. And I think that can be really fulfilling. So along with that sense of community, I think one of the great things about being in a very small remote place is that there is less of a sense of competition and a greater sense of inclusivity and participation and collaboration. I sort of mentioned there's not really the rat race or climbing the corporate ladder, that sort of thing. And I do mean that, but I also just mean in terms of having the opportunity to participate in a wide variety of things and not sort of exiting out earlier than you would normally because of a high level of competition or elitism. And so when I think of that, I often think of my own childhood in a very small town. And because I lived in a small town, everything was free, everything was easy to get to. I basically did everything. So I had a wide variety of experiences as a child, which I think contributed to me being a well-rounded individual. And I think that, for kids, because there isn't like the same sort of like pressure and demand, you get to participate in a wide variety of things. I have friends that live in cities who are like, as soon as some camp date is released, they're all on the phone and they're all stressed out trying to get their kid registered for that and into this and that. And not only is there a demand and it's hard to, be able to even participate, but then there's also this cost on top of that. And in addition to that, you have to drive them all over town, to get to all these different activities. So it ends up being a very sort of exhausting experience, not only for a parent, but for a child as well. Whereas when you live in a small town, you can basically do whatever you want and participate in everything, and it's easy. So you get to have these experiences. People are like, oh, in small places, there's not the same opportunity. I would argue that there's actually greater opportunity because there are less people that you're competing against for opportunities. There is less competition. And you can, there's not tryouts for sports or things like anybody who wants to play can play, and I think that is great because it allows kids to experience more without, this like huge pressure on them, which I think is a good thing. Access and connection to nature, greater independence and more freedom, ease to life, no grind or rat race, authenticity, economic advantages, sense of community, being part of something bigger and purpose, inclusivity and collaboration, wide variety of experiences, and opportunity. And there you have it, folks, all of the marvelous pros of living in a small, isolated, and remote village. If you yourself live in an environment like this, I would be curious to know, have I missed anything? What would you add to the list? And with all these pros, it does beg the question, what are the cons? Would people be interested in hearing about some of the downsides of life here? Or should I keep the illusion going that all is perfect and grand? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
One take Tara.
Just turkey.
Just turkey. There's so much stuff. No, the plates are on the table.